Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the one and only Cindy Patton from the Character Council to introduce our champion of character. And if you're on the Character Council, if you could please join us at the front as well.
I'd like Clarence Irish to come forward. And looks like Shelley Bueller is here from the Character Council. Thanks for being here, Shelley. And is Chief here? Come on up, Chief. We'd love to have you up here. The new Chief of Topeka. Thank you for coming. Let me introduce you to Jamie. Let me introduce you to Jamie Hornbaker. She is a State Farm agent, and she is our new sponsor this year for our City of Character recognition and Safe Streets recognition of our champions of character. So we're very excited to have her as a sponsor, and she's going to go ahead and make the presentation today.
All right, thank you so much. It is such an honor to be able to present these character awards. You know, State Farm's all about being a good neighbor in our community, and when it comes to character awards, we're really celebrating neighbors helping neighbors, people looking out for each other, and it's that kind of character that makes the city of Topeka so wonderful. And yeah, I am really honored to be able to present this. I had a chance to visit with our recipient earlier, and he really truly does embody what the awards are all about. And so I'm going to go ahead and just read this recognition, and then I'll present it. So Kansas Character Recognition Council of Topeka, Shawnee County recognizes Clarence Irish as the strength of our nation is dependent upon the health and safety of its communities. The strength of our community is dependent on the character of its citizens. Topeka City of Character and Safe Streets Coalition of Topeka and Shawnee County recognize Clarence Irish. Clarence was clearing snow from the bridge on Shunga Trails in below freezing weather and saw an elderly woman that was sitting on a bench and thought she was just enjoying the scenery. He went back to check if she was all right and found that she was almost frozen to death. She could hardly speak. She had no gloves, and her clothes were solidly frozen with ice. He tried to communicate with her and help her as best he could, but her feet and legs hurt so much she could hardly walk. And when she wasn't able to walk herself, Clarence picked her up himself and carried her to his utility vehicle. He then took her to the nearest business to get her some warmth, and he called 911 so she could get emergency care. And Clarence obviously is demonstrating compassion, persuasiveness, and responsibility, and he is truly a champion of character for the city. Thank you so much. And so, Clarence, I'm going to give you this, this plaque from the Topeka City of Character and Safe Streets Coalition to recognize you for your actions and to say thank you for everything you've done. And if you'd like to say a few words.
I would humbly like to, I'm very grateful and very humbled by this award. It is truly an honor to be in front of everyone. And I would hope that if anyone seeing anyone in a position like that, that they would do the same. And I know that we all would. And just thank you again.
Oh, yeah, you can keep that.
Okay, and I'd like to call our Keys to Character recipient, Miles Harris. Miles, can you come up here? There he is. Miles is 8 years old. He was his grandparents were working on their home, and both were on scaffolding when it collapsed, causing both of them to fall. Miles was outdoors playing with the dog and saw them both fall. He heard his grandpa groaning, so he ran inside and called 911. Then he ran back outdoors to wait for the ambulance. If it hadn't been for Miles' quick thinking, his grandparents may have laid there for some time without medical assistance. Miles Harris demonstrated alertness, courage, and dependability. Congratulations.
Miles was also one of our chiefs for the day a couple weeks back, so I had to work for him on my first that better? Yeah. Miles was one of our chiefs for the day a couple weeks ago. It was actually my first day on the job, and I had to go to work for him before I even got to do my first day. So congratulations.
And Miles' mom is in the audience, so let's wave to Mom. She does a great job with that young man. Thank you. And I just wanted to remind you the word of the month this month is respect. So be sure and think about how you can show respect to your friends and neighbors and recognize people around you who show respect. So thanks for everything you do as a community. And we just ask you to go to our website, topekacharacter.org, and make those nominations so that we have lots of good people that we can nominate for these awards. Thank you.
All right, let's have another round of applause for Clarence and Miles. And who else here can't hear the word respect without thinking R-E-S-P-E-C-T? I'm not the only one. Good. All right. Now we're going to move on with a little bit of business. We need to approve the minutes from our December meeting, so we're looking for a motion to approve that. We have a motion. Do we have a second to approve the minutes? And we have a second. All in favor of approval, please say aye. Opposed, same sign. All right. Minutes are approved. And now please welcome the Director of Safe Streets, Christy Pankratz, for a staff update.
All right. Happy New Year, everyone. It's great to see everyone again. And Safe Streets has been keeping pretty darn busy. We have a lot of neighborhood watches that are going on and a lot of neighborhoods that we're seeing who are interested in learning more about what that is. We're starting to give lots of presentations to homeowners associations, to different areas of town and the county as well. So just encourage everyone that if you aren't involved in something in your neighborhood, please give us a call. We're happy to come out and present, let you know what we have to offer, and we really just want to get everybody involved, because one of the things that I hear is, how can I make a difference? How can I help? And that's the number one thing. Get involved, help, get to know your neighbor. And that's something really simple that we all can do. So that's something that I would challenge you guys to go and tell your neighbors as well as your family and people you work with. Great opportunity to get to know your neighbors. We have a few things coming up in the next couple of weeks. We have a Retailers Association meeting for local businesses. I see Target over here. They're a great partner in that. And we also have a financial organization meeting too. So if you're involved in banking, please see me and we'll get you hooked up with that meeting. We have a safe property management training, and this we do in partnership with the police department. This is for landlords, property owners, and people who are thinking about becoming landlords. Just kind of a great overview of things to do. And we also offer different drug trends training. So this is through our prevention services side of PARS. And really good training. Lynn Smith in the back does that. And we're also available to come out and talk a lot on those different types of topics. If you need lunch presentations or lunch and learns, or your church group needs something, we're doing a lot of speaking regarding drugs awareness and even talking to kids about the substances, because that's where we believe we can make the most impact is with kids. So if you have a need for those, please come see me after the meeting and we'll get you hooked up with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. And now for our partner updates, we're going to get an update from the Topeka Police Department. Please welcome Sergeant Dan Wilson.
All right, we're going to look at our stats first. Violent crime, as you can see, a lot of blue on there. Those are all good numbers. A lot of those are trending downwards. We'll go ahead and look at the property crime now. Property crime, same thing, a lot of blues. Vehicle break-ins are up a little bit. Make sure we're removing all our valuables and locking up our cars, but overall, really good numbers, a lot of blue on both those slides. Some of the things we've been involved in recently and in the next short time is last weekend was the Polar Plunge for Special Olympics. Thanks to all that took part in that, all different parts of law enforcement and our partners. Topeka Police Department's getting ready to host a safety training for all of the churches in Topeka. We've also been going out and doing safety walkthroughs with the churches and just helping them to be safer with everything they do on their campuses and at their churches. And then again with those slides, remember to remove everything from your vehicle, including firearms, garage door openers, and as a trend with the weather changing, remember not to leave your car warming up with the keys in it. We've had a lot of those drive off this week, so help us out on that end. Thank you.
Thanks, Sergeant Wilson. All right, now I want to take just a couple of minutes. Since our last meeting, Topeka installed a new police chief, and many of us have known this guy for many, many years, and I think those of us who have will say that we absolutely got it right with the selection of Chief Bill Cochran. Please welcome Chief Cochran.
Thanks, Chris. Well, it's an exciting time, not only for me, but I think for the city of Topeka and the Shawnee County community. I think we got a lot of great things going on. One of the things that Dan talked about, but I think he really kind of underplayed it, it's a lot more work than he led on, but the Safe Church initiative that we got going on, we've contacted over 250 churches, and we're in the process of doing some train-the-trainer some stuff with their congregations, so they'll be safe and all this. That came out of a situation that we had at a church in East Topeka. Pastors called us and said they had a situation, and so we worked with them. So this was an initiative that we started as part of our gun safety initiative that we started, and so really excited about that program. Like I said, over 250 churches already have been touched, and there's many more that we're going to work with. But again, that's really one of those initiatives that's just really excited about. So again, we got a lot of good things going on in our community. And one of my philosophies is that community policing is going to be driven from the community up and not from the police department down. That's one of the things that law enforcement has done notoriously over years of time, is that we tell you what you need. And as you know, that's not how it works, because we don't know what you need in your neighborhoods. And so my philosophy is going to be community policing driven from community up and working with those community partners at the grassroots level. So Safe Streets, Christy and I are going to meet here in the very near future, and we're going to talk about a lot of endeavors and stuff that we're going to keep going, expanding that partnership, and how do we make that stronger, and how do we make Topeka the safest capital city in the United States. So, thank you.
Thanks, Chief Cochran. And now for an update from our Shawnee County Sheriff's Office, please welcome Sergeant Rice and Corporal Wanamaker. Just Sergeant Rice today. Here we go. Lots of applause to this one.
I won't use the mic. I know quite a few in the audience, and I've been accused of a lot of things, but being quiet isn't one of them. So I don't know that I really need the mic. Just a little bit about me. I've been with the Sheriff's Office 19 years, and in that time, I've been in every division in almost every unit. And you learn when you're off duty to start monitoring your phone calls, and you let a lot of things go to voicemail. A lot of pressure from my wife to make that happen, because if you answer the phone, you quickly get called back to work. So when fellow officers call, it usually goes to voicemail. Todd calls, oh, it's Todd. He's calling about basketball. I'll answer that. No, it's work. I'm stuck here talking to you all and called away to come do this. So Todd, you're going to voicemail from now on as well. With the Shawnee County Sheriff's Process Division, I don't know how many of you know, with state statute of Kansas, the Sheriff's Office is mandated by law to do two things: serve warrants and serve process. I really didn't know a lot about the process unit until 2.5 years ago, but I quickly found out they're very, very busy. That stat of 50,000 papers that we served last year is actually probably closer to 60,000. And if you really look at it, that's really 180,000. Because what you have to look at is everything that we touch 3 times. We service it coming in, we service it going out, and then we service the return to the courts that it was actually taken care of. So that number jumps up pretty quick. That stat of 15,000 there, that's actually 1,500. We did about 1,500 evictions last year, and we did right around 850 PFAs. What's really amazing on those two stats for me on that, 99% of all of that was handled by 2 deputies with Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. Our unit is really, really busy. To kind of put things into perspective, Sedgwick County, about 4 times the population of Shawnee County, give or take. They're handling somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 process papers a year with 6 deputies opposed to my 2. So we're really busy. Anything from the courts that is not an arrest warrant comes to my office. So that's a lot of papers and a lot of work. We're out there every day. We're amongst everybody. And we do have the privilege to work with a lot of different folks within the community. I know Deputy Hubble specifically works with a lot of our landlords and a lot of our tenants, and we do a lot of extra work and try to do a lot of extra education and help with all of them when it comes to the laws of landlord and tenant laws. So we're here, we're working every day, and if you ever need any questions or have anything, don't hesitate to get a hold of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Rice. It's no secret that the Topeka Rescue Mission has done some incredible mission work here, and we've got a very special presentation from our friends there. Please welcome Amber Cunningham today.
Thank you all for having me. It's a privilege to join you today. I know a lot of you in the room are very well informed on human trafficking issues, so we're going to briefly cover that and look at some of the current stats. There's some good reporting that's just come out, so we're going to update that. But I first want to introduce myself and how I have been working in this field over the last 10 years, and then we're going to talk about what the Rescue Mission is launching in the coming weeks, or what we're working on right now. So I grew up in Topeka, went to Randolph, Landon, Topeka High, K-State, and went to work for Ron Thornburg right out of college for 3 years before I moved to Nashville, Tennessee for the past 12 years. While I was out there, I founded an organization called Freedom's Promise, and we do prevention of human trafficking work in Cambodia. And when I got to Nashville, I was very self-focused. I wanted to be a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I had no desire to go out and change the world, and had no clue that trafficking or slavery still existed. I'm a believer, and one morning I was reading an article about a woman who had been trafficked in Cambodia, and for the second time in my life, God said, "This is what I want you to do and where I want you to start." And for somebody who's never been on a mission trip, never traveled overseas, has no idea how to run a business, this was really daunting. But in that moment, I just had to be willing to say yes, because as a believer, I knew God was going to equip me to be able to walk that out. And He has. So I ran the organization for the first 5 years. We went over and did our due diligence. We learned about what trafficking was. We started looking at who's on the scene in Cambodia already doing work, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. And we started looking at what are those root causes. And as we started peeling back those layers, we realized, well, we're not just solving for human trafficking. We're solving for poverty, for corruption, lack of job skill training, preventable disease care. So when we go into a community alongside our indigenous partners, we had to do community stabilization. So God was laying the groundwork for the work I was going to come do here. And that's been really impactful. So we were in Nashville for 12 years, turned over the running of my nonprofit to my great friend Tiffany, who's stewarding it really well. We're still working wonderfully, and we know what we're doing is working. That community development piece really does work, because when we went into Poi Pet, which is on the Thai-Cambodia border, trafficking of children was over 68%, and within 1 year of our program operating, that number had gone down below 10%. So we know when you arm a community with information and you empower them, they are less vulnerable to traffickers. So that led me back to Topeka about a year and a half ago. I have 3 small children, wanted to move back close to family. And when I got here, I went to work at a corporation and quickly realized, nope, I really like my nonprofit roots. So I started looking around to see what was going on with human trafficking here, and found the rescue mission was working on this issue. And so I was able to plug in at NetReach, where I know a few people in the room, and now we're starting to embark on a new initiative, and that's what I want to share with you today. So we're going to just real quickly, for those who are not aware, I knew I would do that. I would click my computer and not the clicker. I just want to real quick run you through the definition of trafficking for those who don't know or those watching online. So sex trafficking is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, obtaining, patronizing, or soliciting of a person for the purposes of a commercial sex act in which the commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion that pertains to the adult, or in which the person induced to perform such an act has not attained 18 years of age, a minor. And then on the labor trafficking side, it is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, or coercion for all purposes of subjection to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, or slavery. That's just a quick legal definition for you. Want to briefly talk over some specific global numbers. You're going to see all kinds of numbers out there, and for the last 10 years as I've been working in this field, we've been reporting there are 27 million slaves around the world. I don't know how that number stays static for so many years. So I'm excited in these new reports to see some good numbers emerging. This is from the International Labor Organization and Walk Free Foundation. They're estimating there are 40.3 million victims of modern slavery in the world. Of that 40.3 million, 16 are forced labor exploitation, 15.4 forced marriage, 4.8 forced sexual exploitation, and 4.1 state-imposed forced labor. That would include a prison using forced labor, or your standing armies, your child soldiers. That's what falls under state-imposed. Of that 40.3 million, 71% are females, 29% males, and 25% children. What I want to draw your attention to specifically here, that economic-wise, we know trafficking is generating a lot of money for this industry. So 150 global industry is the new number. But 99 billion of this is from that 4.8 million sex slaves. So your sex slavery is a smaller percentage of the total slaves, but they generate the bulk of the money. So on your national numbers, I've taken a little different approach here. Who's familiar with the Trafficking in Persons report that the United States puts out? We started that in 2000, reporting on other countries, and that's how we evaluated what are they doing to eradicate trafficking in their country, and we're basing our trade on that. So that's the report we started in 2000. We didn't start reporting on ourselves until 2010. So we got a 10-year gap on our national numbers from that report. And so it's really hard still. A lot of our numbers nationally are coming from individual organizations that are working at the grassroots level, so you'll see a lot of different numbers out there. And that, the stats are really important to me because we don't want to over-emphasize numbers and blow them up, and we don't want to under-report, and I think we end up under-reporting, which is probably good. But out of the 25,000 runaway youth reported, there's an estimated 1 in 7 that are likely to become trafficking victims. And of that, 88% are in the care of social services. I'm going to talk a little bit about vulnerability here. We know that kids, if you jump down real quickly, this bottom stat, it's talking about, nope, I'm sorry, it's on your handout. On your handout, there's a stat that talks about, it's drawing that correlation between sexual abuse as a child and human trafficking. And we know that children who are sexually abused, they're going to be more vulnerable to traffickers. So when we look at intervention from the rescue mission, we see almost 100% of those victims that we're talking to, they've had sexual abuse in their past. They're reporting that. So there's a strong correlation there. I also want to point out that pornography is an emerging issue. It is not necessarily a cause of trafficking, but there's a strong correlation. A lot of people like to think it's a victimless crime, but the reality is if there's a child in a pornographic image, that is legally considered human trafficking. and that's not being reported as part of those numbers. So you'll see from 2004 to 2014, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in their search for children viewed 108 million pornographic images of children. That's 108 million instances of human trafficking. And then in 2013 and 14 alone, 19 million images. So you can see how the reporting on this is a real challenge because we're not getting all that information. Okay, I can answer questions at the end. I feel like this audience is pretty well informed, but if you have questions on more of those particulars about the vulnerabilities of traffickers and trafficking and how that's happening, I can answer those questions. But I want to talk to you about Topeka Rescue Mission's response to this issue. The Rescue Mission does an amazing job of sheltering the homeless, of providing food for those in need of care in our community. And as they were going about that business, they started seeing some things that they couldn't explain. They were seeing women who wanted to leave the situation they were in but couldn't. They started to see women who were locked in houses in Topeka. And they were trying to understand that, trying to explain it. And at that time, there was an organization called Alden's House that was starting to address trafficking in Topeka. And they merged with the Rescue Mission and developed Restore Hope, which is a team now that goes out and does this intervention in the community. So they're bringing help and hope by engaging prevention strategies in the community, intervening individuals in human trafficking, and building bridges of restoration between these individuals and the community. So that engagement piece is your education, working in the schools to help kids educate their peers. They do an unlock training that's helping people better understand the issues of trafficking and how they can engage. Intervening individuals, this is really unique. It's not simple to just say we've got a victim and we've got a perpetrator. And they do a really beautiful job at Restore Hope of intervening the individual before them, at seeing that individual and knowing that they are created by God, they have a purpose, and they had a purpose before they were trafficked, before they were abused. And sometimes the perpetrator was a trafficking victim that's now being forced to traffic other girls. And so they just do a real beautiful job at engaging those individuals when they go about that work. And then the restoration is a piece that's going to be in development. We're going to be building out that community development piece and what it looks like to offer restoration ongoing as these girls are rebuilding their lives and going through prosecuting the cases and trying to reestablish themselves in the community. So Restore Hope has grown tremendously over the last 4 years and is doing some really beautiful work. But as we looked at this and as we get deeper into it, the reality is that there's more going on here. As much as Restore Hope's doing, trafficking is still flourishing in this community. As much as the police officers and the DA are doing, as the legislature's gone from an F to an A, there's amazing work that's being done, and yet we still have a massive problem. And we started looking at that and said, well, what's next? What more do we need to do? And so we're launching Freedom Now USA. And this is going to construct a framework that allows states to collaborate, share resources, to not only facilitate a conversation, but also inspire solutions, shining a light into dark places and eradicating slavery from the United States. So we're calling all 50 states to officially declare war on human trafficking, the industry of it, not the people, but the industry and the networks, on all forms of slavery, ensuring that no state or sector operates in a silo, but engages as a united front. So across the nation, we've got the Restore Hopes, we've got Exodus Cry, we've got Polaris, we've got the state legislatures doing things. We have all of these amazing things happening, and yet we have not eradicated slavery. So what we're trying to do is create that framework where we can start at the grassroots level and start conversations by sectors and start to look at what do we need to do differently, within the education sector. How are we engaging with trafficking here? How are traffickers operating within education systems? How are victims not getting services they need? How is this demand continuing to flourish? To really start to address this together, and then as that information rises up, these sectors can start to talk to each other, and that can start to inform policy decisions at the state level and then the national level. So that means we have to have a Freedom Now Kansas because we've got to address this at the state level. So at the state level, we're helping the local communities to develop sector-specific coalitions to discuss and establish action plans to combat and eliminate slavery from local communities, states, and eventually the nation. Kansas has a really unique history because in the 1850s, we refused to compromise on the issues of slavery. And once more, we're going to lead the way in that. We are asking key leaders to rise to greatness and stand together, offering their full support to the grassroots efforts in their state to eradicate slavery. And we started that process, if you saw in the news, on January 26th, former Governor Sam Brownback signed a proclamation declaring war on trafficking, which is modern-day slavery. And on February 1st, TRM staff joined the Kansas House and Senate to commemorate the 70th anniversary of National Freedom Day, as both passed resolutions opposing human trafficking and encouraging the dismantling of human trafficking networks. So we were able to take that proclamation, turn it into resolutions on both the House and the Senate side. And this is huge because February 1st is such an important day because that is it's celebrating, commemorating when Abraham Lincoln drafted that resolution for the 13th Amendment to be added to the Constitution to outlaw slavery. So for Kansas, who has this amazing history of standing against slavery, on February 1st, the House and the Senate to pass a resolution was just incredible. So we've got our key leaders starting to join in this fight and declare war and say, not in our state. And now we're going to start our next step, which is on the local level. And that is our Freedom Now Topeka. So this is where Topeka and other key cities are going to establish a coalition, either working through existing coalitions or studying up a new one if necessary, to meet monthly to discuss assignments from Freedom Now USA. So we would provide those assignments, those things to talk about. And as details of barriers and possible action plans emerge within the sectors, the coalition will have the sectors begin talking to each other to evaluate how they can better work together to remove barriers and enhance action plans. And as a people, sectors and systems begin working together, change will happen. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some time and some hard work. But the reality is we haven't fixed the problem yet, and we've got to start to take a broad look at this and do the hard work together to really eradicate this. So we're really excited, and I think everyone we've talked to as we've laid this out has been really excited about this shift in the ways that we can come alongside the existing organizations, existing police and legal systems, and just help create opportunity for conversation and to move a plan forward. So it's been a real privilege to do this. So I know a lot of you are engaged, but I just always like to show people how they can respond, because if this hits you and you want to do more on this specific issue, with Restore Hope locally, you can organize a hygiene or art supply drive. You can attend an Unlock training. Soon with Freedom Now, you could serve on the coalition. If you're financially wanting to contribute, this is super simple now. You can text the word TRM Give to 77977 and donate to Restore Hope or Freedom Now USA. And then I would recommend, if you see something, if you have a concern or a possible identification of a trafficking victim, this is a phone number you can call to refer that person to Restore Hope. So I'm not sure where I'm at on time, but I would love to answer questions anybody has. And I really appreciate your time today. Okay. Well, I will hang out afterwards if you guys have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amber Cunningham and our friends over at the Topeka Rescue Mission. And thank you, everyone, for coming out today to our Safe Streets meeting to make Topeka and Shawnee County the safest capital community in the country. We'd like to see you back here for our next meeting. It's going to be March 7th right here at the Great Overland Station. Starts right at noon, so we'll see you then. Thank you so much for coming out today.